Welcome to the Voices in Hyperspace, where friends get together and talk about all things science fiction. We are currently watching Season 3 of Babylon 5, and today's episode is The Walkabout. I'm Captain Mel Asylum.
I'm Legendary Black Lion.
Hey y'all, this is Sunday.
And we have a really cool episode. It is definitely a break from the normal wild shenanigans that has been happening for the last 3 episodes, I believe. No magic person from 1,000 years ago, and no time travel shenanigans. What we do is we catch up on a couple of things. And I think that's what this episode is about. When we were off air, Sunday was talking about this definitely felt like a filler episode. And on one hand, I'm like, I feel you, because not a lot is happening. But there are some things that are happening to progress the story. So honestly, I'll leave it up to y'all to judge if this is a filler or is this more like an exposition episode.
This feels like they're filling in information that was going to be used later. Plus, we also needed to meet the new ambassador, Kosh.
Yeah.
We needed to catch up with what Dr. Franklin's doing. And
who?
And who?
Yeah.
And they needed to use the information that they learned about the shadows, where and testing it sounds very important to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And what they need to do, because you can't just go out there and assume that because we have it's a theory, like he said. He says, like, maybe if we think. So when you have all those questions, you have to test them. That's science.
Yeah. And Babylon 5 is put in a unique position to have to do that with limited resources. And we're going to kind of touch on that here pretty soon. So the show opens up, and it is none other than our good friend, Ambassador Londo Malari, who is complaining because there are Narn ships hanging out. And he's harassing Garibaldi, saying, like, how do I know that all these Narn hanging around aren't going to open fire on us? And Garibaldi gives him a very great and scary response, which is, I give you the same guarantee that I gave you about there won't be any Narn to sneak into your quarters and slit your throat. And Lando's like, I don't remember you giving me that guarantee. And Garibaldi's like, I know.
That was my favorite line of this whole series. Like, that was priceless. Like, let's go.
And he doesn't guarantee Londo anything, because he was explaining how since Babylon 5 has gone independent and gone away from Earth Force, all of the treaties and all of the demands that the Centauri may have are they're void, because President Clark is not the head honcho in these parts. It's Captain Sheridan, and he actually is trying to keep everybody else safe. So it's like, if you think you're in danger, Mr. Londo, you might want to think about why. So then we quickly switch to Lita Alexander. She has arrived on the station again, and she's looking around for Dr. Franklin. And it is the other doctor, and I'm so terrible that I can't remember her name, because she's the one that was yelling at Franklin before when he almost killed that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, yo, no, Franklin's not here because he's on a personal leave of absence. And Lita is bringing up, like, oh, I'm here because I wanted to know more about Kosh's death. And the doctor was like, yeah, that's all confidential. You can't really tell you anything about that. And Lita's like, no, I know. It's cool. We're supposed to keep it secret, which they're trying to keep it secret, but they're like in the middle of med lab in front of all these people just talking about it so loudly. Yeah.
Is the microphone picking up?
Right. I know his death is supposed to be a secret. But she's trying to figure out the circumstances. And it goes nowhere because they don't really know, because all they did was find his remains, ? Which, what are Vorlon remains? We saw a burned up encounter suit. And I don't know, like, are they energy beings, or are they like energy and organic?
They might be energy and organic, because the ships are.
Yeah, the ships are orbiting.
Okay, this just might not be. Yeah.
But also, like, in the pilot, was his Dr. Richard? Oh god,
Mm-hmm.
the first doctor. He was like, he put his hands on a Vorlon. So I don't know. It's a good question.
Then he was poisoned.
Yeah, he was poisoned. And
So how do you define poison?
how do you poison a Vorlon? That's a good question.
So they would have to have a physical form
Yeah.
if they can be poisoned in the sense that we think of poison and not in the sense of its whatever energy it's made of was altered. Because that could be, I guess, defined as a poison if it was a energy, uh, if its physiology was just energy.
Yeah. So I guess there are more questions that we just didn't ask in the pilot, which is what could affect a Vorlon in that way? Do they eat? What do they eat? If that's the case. Because Kosh just hangs out in the alien sector where humans would have to wear a mask in order to get there. But the question, like, he doesn't really need it. And, you know, so I guess that's how he seeks solitude. Who knows? We quickly switch over to CNC, and Ivanova is talking to Garibaldi because he gets around a lot. And they're asking, like, where's the captain? The new Vorlon is going to come to the station. He's going to come out of the jump gate. And Garibaldi's like, what? Let me tell him. And Ivanova's like, well, why? And he explains that Sheridan, all the crazy stuff that's going on, Sheridan had to clear his mind, so he had to take a little bit of a walk outside of the station. So Sheridan is on the hull of the station outside in space doing a spacewalk. Remember, that thing is still rotating. You can tell that it's rotating. And while he's hanging out there, the Vorlon ship comes through the gate and it goes directly to him. And they're just kind of having this weird staring contest. And the ship makes like some symbols on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, what does that mean?
I guess he's talking.
Yeah. Which we're gonna really learn this episode. Like, the Vorlons are a little bit of jerkish kind of people. At least this one, anyway. So we switch to seeing Jakar. He's hosting the call. He's the captain of that heavy cruiser that was stationed at Babylon 5 that started the whole war. And eventually led to Babylon 5 seceding from Earth Force. Yeah, that's the guy. And Jakar's like, this isn't the hero's welcome you deserve, but it will do for now. And Jakar is bringing him food. He's bringing him hot, fresh food. Nicole is explaining, like, hey, I've been on the run for so long. It's been months since I've had fresh food, which means they've been living on, like, rations for the entire time. It makes me think of when Sheridan was talking about he spent 2 years on the rim and he hadn't had fresh food. And that has to be a lot.
And there's a scene later that reminds me of that.
Oh, yeah?
Pulls out the orange.
Oh, yeah. So, the food that is unveiled, Nicole is like, oh, Brie, how did you get that here? And Jakar's like, this isn't actually Breen. This is a dish that the Earthlings call Swedish meatballs. One of the mysteries of the universe is that every culture in the galaxy has a version of these Swedish meatballs. And I'm just like, that is such a weird thing to be dropping in a casual conversation.
Well, I mean, they're talking about the food, and they don't look anything like Swedish meatballs.
They're a version.
Whatever they.
They're the galactic version, the space version. Who knows? They couldn't get all the ingredients on the station, so maybe they couldn't make.
They didn't even look like balls. Like, did you use what you had to make a ball?
So in their casual conversation, they're talking about the ships that they have. Most of the ships from the Narn were damaged during the war. Many were destroyed, but the ones that were damaged, they're kind of being cannibalized to repair some so they can like rebuild their fleets. And Nikal's heavy cruiser is completely undamaged and ready for battle. And he turns to Jakar and he says, "Okay, so when do we strike back?" And Jakar's like, "We don't." And this throws Jakar aback. He's like, "What do you mean we don't?" And Jakar explains, like, "Look, there's some things going on in the galaxy that we need to attend to. Us getting revenge on the Centauri isn't a top priority. We need to be here at Babylon 5 and be ready."
That sounds like the head knowing more than they tell the rest of the people, which to an extent we can kind of see why. But he's going to just deny what he says because he doesn't know the other information. So the captain is making the decision based on what information he has, which conflicts with what information Jakar has, because Jakar has more information. Not to mention, Babylon 5 kind of kept them safe, even if they don't know that Babylon 5 is currently still trying to keep them safe.
Yeah, true. Jakar has finally been let in on what the secret is, and they all have to, while they know, they have to be tight-lipped about it. And so he, in a direct but still not fully disclosing everything, he's telling like, we need to chill out for a little bit because some stuff is about to go down and we need to be ready.
Taking on the Centauri in their condition, period, just sounds stupid. Wait, I know you're eager to get revenge, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you go ships.
See, they don't really go too much into this, but the Narn are a very aggressive culture, and just the same way that they fought in the war, they were just like, no, we don't need to leave some ships behind. We're going to go in and we're going to completely destroy them. And then they got beat up. And then and then on the station, the Narn security officers ran in with no weapons in some cases to fight the invaders, and they got shot up. So the Narn they're not the best tacticians, but they are very fierce fighters. And Jakar is finally spending some time thinking and having foresight. Like, no, we actually need to think about this tactically because there's some, like, more than the Centauri, there's another enemy in the galaxy that we need to be paying attention to. But he hasn't gotten to explain that yet.
Yeah.
So Sheridan and Ivanova, they meet the new Vorlon, which he has a little bit different encounter suit. It has like everything looks a little bit more aggressive and cold compared to what Kosh had, like this warm green and brown. This new Vorlon, he has this cold, like gray and kind of some some red in there. And
it's pointy on the edge.
Yes.
I noticed that.
He has pointy everything, which he's like the villain of the Vorlons. Yeah. You're not supposed to like this guy. And they're stressing like, hey, we understand. We're supposed to keep Ambassador Kosh's secret. We're supposed to keep his death secret, saying it aloud again. And we're supposed to act like nothing ever happened. We're going to even address you as Kosh. We're going to keep it hush hush. And Sheridan's like, oh, by the way, you didn't tell me what I should call you when we're alone. And the Vorlon turns around and then says, Kosh. And Sheridan is confused, is like, yeah, but Kosh is dead. What should I call you? And then he turns around again. He's like, Kosh. And Sheridan's like, I don't understand. And the Vorlon says, we are all Kosh. So now we're adding layers to the mystery of the Vorlons. Are they a hive mind? Are they that kind of alien? Who knows?
Maybe. Because they've added the other girl to their hive mind partially, or he created the old Kosh made a smaller hive mind between the two of them, which seems more symbiotic. But a hive mind is a large symbiotic system. So that is very plausible.
That they all one thing. Kosh ain't went nowhere. He ain't never died. Like, just like he can be all the different, like when everybody saw Kosh outside of his suit and they all saw the deity of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's because he's omnipotent. Is that the word?
No, I think you're thinking of omnipresent.
Omnipresent. Yeah, that one too. He's all the things.
Okay. We'll bookmark all of that because like later in the series some things do come to light. So after that conversation, we get to see that Garibaldi easily tracks down Franklin.
Well, he won't on the run.
No, he wasn't on the run, but it was they were like, I think it was Ivanova was saying like, hey, we haven't seen Franklin in a while, so we checked security and he hasn't been in his quarters for a few days. We need to see what he's up to. And Franklin, he didn't really cover his tracks or anything either, but leave it to good old Gumshoe Garibaldi. Finds him easily, and then let's kind of put the pieces together. Garibaldi tracked his credit card purchases.
He did some good old detective.
Yeah. He knows how to do his job when he wants to do it. It's so crazy, so dumb. And he's asking Franklin like, okay, so what's the deal? Franklin's like, you want the long story or the short story? And Garibaldi being his own jerk self is like, what's the short story? And Franklin, with one word, explains it: walkabout. Which that's not good enough for Garibaldi because he doesn't understand anything. So the long version is basically, this is where we learn that Franklin is a foundationalist. This is another look into the religions that are practiced on Babylon 5. So
what's a foundationalist?
That I'm so glad that you asked. It does get explained in other episodes, but the easiest answer is these are people who take all religions and look at the unified truths that are found in it and believes in that. So they're like, while all religions have some contradictory things, they're like, that stuff doesn't matter. The thing that matters is like the common things that we all believe.
That's kind of like Wicca.
Oh,
in some forms. There are different forms of Wicca.
Interesting.
But Wicca's not a religious philosophy, but yeah.
On the episode when they do discuss it a little bit more, we can dig into it. But what Franklin explains, his walkabout has to deal with him losing himself being a doctor. He spent so much time trying to be a doctor, and we always said he's always trying to save everybody. He's trying to save the galaxy. He's trying to save the universe, and he lost himself. And to cover it up, he turned to stems. And it's, first of all, bravo, Franklin. You kind of pinpointed some of your personal issues. Now, there are some deeper things that you need to dig into, which a therapist would be very helpful for, but he doesn't believe in that because he's a doctor. He's going to figure it out all by himself.
But he goes on a walkabout, but he can't see a therapist.
No, because on his walkabout, he's going to encounter himself and have a conversation with himself so he can solve all his problems by himself and he can fix himself. So he's turning his Messiah complex in on himself.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's funny. But I mean, at least he is acknowledging that he has a problem and is, seeking some introspection, which a lot of people, stay in denial and can't even get that far.
Yeah, he is doing something.
and his
And
family.
I don't knock it. Garibaldi asked, like, "You're a scientist. Why would you go on a walkabout?" And they don't go into it probably because people didn't actually like truly know. We didn't really have the science back then. We had the basis for the science of it back then. But doing things like a walkabout or a meditation, it can separate that ego from the subconscious. And also the aspect of when you have a problem, sometimes sitting back and looking at it from a different perspective can help you look at it better or look at it from not the inside. Then you can see the full picture. So, in a walkabout is one way where you can remove yourself from all things so that you could get a better perspective or a different perspective of the whole life. Because you could sit there and say, well, here's the problem. But if that's the ego saying that's the problem, you may not be looking at the subconscious thing. Also, another part of a walkabout is you have to live off the land, and sometimes you might not have food, and therefore go into fasting, which is another way of your body shutting off some parts of the ego and thinking with the other parts, lower parts to the brain, resting all those thoughts in your head. Therefore, yeah, just being a whole nother layer of listening to the subconscious and not always having that front layer, the ego, talking to you. Because the ego,
Now
well,
you're talking my language.
so there was a scientific backing to what he's doing, doing a walkabout. However, on the other hand, you are doing this on a space station with a doctor's salary.
By
So
himself.
now we're in my language. I've been getting all into like the difference between my animal, my ego, and my higher self, and trying to, put language to whether it's your conscious, your subconscious, or whatever part of it is that has been giving the forefront in your conversation at the moment or activities. I've not considered how your ego gets such a bad rap because societal is like, oh, you got a big ego, and that's like a bad thing. And like, you're so egotistical. There's just all these negative connotations that go towards your ego when really it's a protective mechanism that it will lie to you. I mean, that doesn't always sound like a good idea, but it's doing it with the best of intentions to try to protect oneself, and your higher self is what I have been calling it due to the communication tools that I'm learning. It's always there and it's talking in the background, but it's not gonna fight the ego for the forefront. It's just gonna wait for the ego to calm itself down so that the higher self can come forward and gain understanding of whatever situation it is that you currently see yourself experiencing. And Mel, when you mentioned like on these walkabouts, you may not have food. Honestly, the first thing I was thinking, are shrooms a part of these walkabouts? But then when you started talking about ego, I wanted to like actually be serious because shrooms might be a part of the walkabout. I don't fucking know. But anyway, when you said
Well,
that you
they
might
probably are.
nice. So that you might be without food and that the ego is the one that probably reminds you and tells you to eat and shit. Of course, because the ego is the one that is concerned about self-preservation and making sure that you are right so you can't starve and die. But yeah, that is so cool. How you connected all those dots. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And I've been learning a lot more about religion in general and how some religions come to be. And this may be something we were talking about last week. Not on the show though, but
Yeah.
For a lot of the older religions, like the Yahweh temples from long, long ago before Christianity came, during the time that the Bible was being written, they did testing on the walls and found copious amounts of cannabis residue.
Yep.
And and that was a way of, and I feel like the use of cannabis is so common in religious practices when you think of like Rasta, where it's they you can get to there's a short story, short explanation. It helps you go to your subconscious. It helps you think with the subconscious. It shuts down the ego. And then some people have suppressed memories come up because it's literally stopping that extra brain process so you can think about all those things that your mind has pushed back. And the way they did it, it was they were burning like pounds of it and closing up the whole temple, probably suffocating in there, hallucinating on top of, you know, the ego shutting off for a second, and then when they get sober, yeah, which also they were literally, and it also when I got to the next chapter after Exodus, they were explaining how the offerings are supposed to be given, and they were eating unleavened bread that was salted, and they were smoking the meat that was also salted. So they basically had crackers and jerky. That's what people eat when they get the munchies.
Oh wow!
Oh wow! Yeah.
I want chips. Like a lot of people go for chips or crackers. They were making crackers because I've had Jewish matzah, the unleavened bread. They're giant crackers. That would be awesome to eat. When I've actually thought about it one time when I got high, I wanted some matzah. It's the perfect freaking high.
Is that, another spiritual thing that people do? I don't know what ayahuasca is, but I know I hear people talk about it a lot, and I'm just assuming it's somewhere along the lines of mushrooms.
Any hallucinogen.
Yeah, I think it's
so they also
that's like a byproduct of like a cactus or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not
any hallucinogen. So mushrooms, and they also said that some of the priests in the Middle East would sit by rivers and have that sound deprivate, like the white noise of the river flowing, and chew on flowers, and some people theorize that those flowers may have been poppies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot that we can dig in there. And there is an episode that's coming up pretty soon where we will get to dig a little deeper, especially with Franklin himself. So because you notice at the end of this episode, he's still on walkabout. He doesn't stop. So
yeah.
All right, moving along. Basically, Franklin and Garibaldi they're in a place where Franklin is like, I got to do this because I need to find myself. And when Garibaldi asks why, like why you got to do all this, you're a scientist, etc. Franklin is like, exactly. It's kind of a begging question, but it's also part of that, like when all the words have been spoken, your true self emerges. And so that's the reason why for him. We quickly switch to the new Vorlon, who is meeting with Lita, and she's like, and the new Vorlon is telling her like, yo, tell me how this went down. And he also telepathically chokes her. So he's already scoring points for the jerk meter. And she's like, I wasn't here. Like,
because she's being evasive all the time. All of those telepathic people just be acting like they don't know shit until somebody put their hands on them, and then all of a sudden you got answers, or maybe you think you might be able to know somebody who can fucking help.
But she also wasn't there. I mean, she is being evasive this whole episode. Well, at least with that Vorlon. Because she's scared. She's scared to go face him. And he asks her, was there another? And she's like, no. The conversation is a little cryptic. They know what they're talking about. And I think we can kind of put two and two together as the episode goes along. Because something happens really soon. But this new Vorlon is not happy. Not happy with Lita. Lita is still in the place to be kind of like the liaison between the Vorlons and everybody else. She's a telepath, but the Vorlons don't seem to like humans. Yeah.
They treat us like kids, though. Like the way he was talking to Sheridan and Ivanova, like it gave it reminded me of talking to my students. It's like, you want food, but it's not lunchtime. You clearly, clearly I can't just tell you it's not lunchtime because I already said it 20 times. So let me just give you the answers that I need you to focus on right now, and not actually tell you what's going on, because that me just telling you it's not lunchtime is just going to cause a tantrum.
Yeah, we also don't know what the Vorlons are fully capable of, so who knows when one is upset what they'll actually do. We quickly switch to see Lita is talking with Sheridan. Sheridan asks, "Oh, so how's everything going with the new ambassador?" And she's like, fine," lying through her teeth. She's not sure. She doesn't know what to think of him. Also, bro assaulted her, so. And echoing what you just said, Mel, she says that the Vorlons are very delicate, despite that their mysterious exterior. They don't react well to change, and Kosh dying was a big deal to the Vorlons. Like, one of them hasn't died in a long time, and Sheridan's asking questions about that, like, when was the last time we heard of a Vorlon dying? When do we, what do we really know about them? And as he's talking, Lita kind of is zoning out, and he asks her, "Is there a problem?" But she hears Kosh's voice, and she's like, "What?" And then you hear Sheridan's voice, like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And
that's because Kosh ain't dead.
Or there's an echo of his energy in Sheridan.
Right. Sheridan quickly changes the subject, like, "Hey, look, I'm gonna need you to do something for me." While that's going on, we quickly switch to down below, where we're checking in on Franklin, who is in a jazz bar in down below. And we listen to this full musical number by this jazz singer. The character's name is Kaylin James, and Franklin is giving her the smoky eyes. The bedroom eyes. And she notices, and she's all like, "Oh, yeah." When I was watching this part, I was noticing everything. First of all, she's all right as a jazz singer. I don't see her going very far in her career, but it's passive, it's adequate. But the instrumentals in the background, there's like an actual bass guitar, but bro, that's like playing the saxophone. It's a weird electronic saxophone. It looks like a giant vape pen.
Oh, the sci-fi electric.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we have electric horns now. We've had them for a while.
Do they look like that?
I was I don't remember. I wasn't really into electric horns. I occasionally saw them because like companies that made electric guitars would also make them. And I was just in college. I was a music major, so I saw a lot of music. But I was very distracted by her voice. It sounded like they hired her because she was an actress who could carry a tune. Yep. But the whole song was like 4 notes. And if she went outside of like her range of 3, she had 3 notes that she could sing really well.
Yep.
And when she went any higher than that, it was like, they hired you because you are a pretty actress. Like, you can act clearly, but you would not pass as an actual singer. She could, for this, like, because I've been trained to sing and I sing in like 3 different ranges. Like, I know what it's like to try to go outside your range. That's how I know how long my range is. And that's what it sounds like. I'm like, okay, y'all trying to pass.
She probably wasn't really trained to sing. You know what I mean?
No, she's not trained to sing, but she probably has some of a voice training because she is an actress. A lot of actors and actresses, especially voice actors, will do some type of singing training to control their voices.
Yeah.
But it also reminded me of the girl that the guy that we don't like. What I can't remember. The Centauri. Londo, the stripper he fell in love with. Like,
oh yeah,
she couldn't dance very well either, even though it's just being a stripper. But strippers have skills. Like, they have enormous. They have workout routines for strip poles because of how much athleticism it takes. And
that's why you kind of tell people, like, Sunday, you a stripper. I'm like, I'm not strong enough to be a stripper, y'all. Let me tell you something. I ain't got it.
Yeah, this is like no, even just to dance on stage without a pole, like she was barely moving. It was kind of like peek here, peek here, peek here. Look, I'm pretty. That was the whole dance.
Yeah.
Oh,
What didn't they like show mainly her legs and then her face, but not like anything else?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you
What they
have to
did
lose.
what they did interesting in this episode was they played around with the cinematography a lot more. The camera panned and did some really interesting stuff that made you feel like you were part of the scene, which they've been experimenting with that all season. They pan around Franklin while he's watching the show, and then they shoot and pan around Kaylin as she's singing.
I noticed at the end of the episode when Franklin was leaving the establishment that he was inside of, how they showed multiple depictions of him through the glass block wall he was sitting on the other side of. That was pretty cool.
Yep. Symbolism, y'all. Symbolism.
Was he looking at himself through different lenses?
Right. So basically, he's dumbstruck. What is it? No. Yeah. He is smitten with this singer. While that's going on, Sheridan and the crew, they're having a very serious conversation. What they're trying to do is they need to test their theory on how they can use telepaths to destroy Shadow Ship. They used a telepath helped them in the past. They were able to get away from a ship, and now they have to see, like, is this actually a weapon that we can use in this war? They are asking for more than the White Star to be part of it, because, like, even if they succeeded at jamming the Shadow Ship, the White Star might not have enough firepower. Garibaldi and Delenn speak up, and they kind of override the captain by, like, saying, like, no, we're going to absolutely get you some backup. You can't go out and do this by yourself. You're not Sinclair. You got a team behind you, Sheridan. Let's all go out there together with the power of friendship.
Oh my gosh.
That's Delenn. We just thought Delenn's just going to be a My Little Pony from now on. Because as much as
she's a Sailor Moon character, right? But
oh yeah, she got the crystal.
Yeah.
Moon Prism power.
So they got, instead of the White Star going by itself, they're going to take some Minbari telepaths too, and a couple other ships, and they're going to try to get some of the Alliance ships to go with them. We check back in on Franklin and Caitlin. They have a conversation. They're making a love connection. They're talking about why Franklin is even down there, which she's very observant. She's like, you don't seem like the type to really come down here. And they're having a flirtatious conversation back and forth. She got some game. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if a random woman was like talking to me the way that she was talking to Franklin, I'm like, yeah, I think we might need to hang out a little bit more.
She's a girl singer. It's their job to seduce people.
True. Yes. And she looks through her rocks glass at Franklin, and you see kind of like the mosaic of color and light, and then you see the multiple reflections of Franklin in it. And again, symbolism, y'all. Really cool symbolism. We will talk about that in a moment. So Sheridan and crew, they're on the White Star. They are hanging out in the middle of hyperspace waiting to hear of a shadow attack. Sheridan was like, there were 3 shadow attacks here previously. We're just going to wait until we get another one because the odds are good they're going to do it again. And I don't like that line because remember before when they were talking about the shadows fighting, how they were moving around randomly attacking things, and their patterns are very difficult to follow. So that's just a thing that that bothered me.
Yeah.
But very soon though, they got a distress signal and they had to jump into action. Franklin and Kaylin are back at his quarters, and she's once again looking at him through the rocks glass through the mosaic of light and crystal. And Franklin keeps asking, why do you keep doing that? And Kaylin is like, well, I feel like if I can look through the glass and under the right circumstances, I can see a person's soul, like the real them. And then she goes, well, maybe not all the time. And Franklin's like, well, what if you're right? And that's where we start to get into Franklin's psyche, because she's looking at him through the mosaic, and she's like, well, if I can look through the glass and under the right circumstances, I can see a person's soul, like the real them. And then she goes, well, what if you're right? And that's where we start to get into Franklin's psyche, because she's looking at him through the mosaic, and you see all the versions of him, and he sees and feels himself being separated and pulled apart. And he's looking for himself while she's kind of looking to try to see the real him too. And that's so cool. But then we just bypass that altogether. And yeah, she's definitely flirting with him. And she asks, like, so what are you doing here? You know, he mentions some BS of just like trying to figure out what's going on. And she like, no, you're here because you want to spend the night with a beautiful woman. At least that's what you're supposed to say. And he has this look on his face like, yeah, I do want to spend the night with a beautiful woman.
Which is kind of the half the point of him finding himself, because if he's living in the moment, you get to learn about yourself. And that was a show not tell part of him. Well, she was telling that he should be living in the moment and not worried about what answers he's going to find.
I mean, it kind of depends, because either it's him indulging in a vice or it's him walking a path where he's going to figure out, like, is this really what I'm down here for? I don't know.
He's supposed to be looking at the different parts of him and not just be a doctor. And one of the parts of him is being a flirt.
Yes, the direct approach is my favorite. Come through. But every relationship that you are in, there is something in that other person that is the same as yourself. And, you know, through that similarity that you see, there are also other parts of them that you can learn from, and you know, take the good parts, try to leave the bad stuff, and keep progressing along. It's one of the things I really adore about polyamory and having the opportunity to have multiple relationships. So the learning and the growth is so expansive.
We're going to move quickly because Garibaldi he rushes in on Jakar. He wakes him from his slumber, and Jakar just looks like the ever long suffering hero, right? He's like, God, who is that at my door? Garibaldi comes busting in. He puts the book of Jaquan and slams it on the table. It's like, look, if you don't care about the things in this book, why should I care? And Jakar does like a really like quick religious symbol on the book. He's like, what do you mean? And he explains. They have a back and forth about how Nakal isn't going to help support Sheridan with his ships at all. And Jakar is like, yeah, he doesn't want to go. And Garibaldi, in an extremely wonderfully shot and performed scene, explains like, that's not his call to make. You're the leader, and the leaders have the bigger picture. Like, if we humans didn't protect you, you wouldn't be here. But you know what? Sheridan had a bigger picture, and he put our fighters on the line. They fought and died to protect you guys. You guys don't want to return the favor? Okay, fine. Don't be pretending to be all high and mighty and spiritual all of a sudden when you show that you don't care about our people. And Jakar's over there. Jakar's over there looking like, oh man.
I'm glad he's saying that from the perspective of actually reading it. Which is a whole other rant, but never mind.
Yeah.
But I am glad he did that from the perspective of actually reading it, because some people will make assumptions about people's religions and be like, this is what you're supposed to be.
I'm glad you brought that up. So it's like Garibaldi is making an assumption about the religion, even though a lot, as an audience, we agree. Franklin, post coitus, is making a very large assumption about Caitlin, because they're having their little snuggle puddle, and he's looking around and he's like, I don't like the way you live down here. Is there anything that I can do to help you? And she's like, I've been living my life like this for a long time. I'm cool. And he's like, yeah, but I don't like it. Are you sure there's nothing? And then she's like, well, there is something you could do. And he's like, what? And she's like, medicine. And Dr. Franklin emerges and he's like, that's a dangerous narcotic. No, I don't
And I'm
want
gonna
to do
go
that.
from judging you from one aspect of your life right into another with no context or background or understanding or nothing. Just your ego flailing around. You supposed to be on this. What did you call it? Walkabout. You're doing a terrible job right now, my boy.
Well, he hasn't finished the walkabout, so he hasn't found enlightenment yet.
Shoot, he barely started, right?
Yeah, he's only been on it for 4 days.
So she backs off of that and he's all like snuggling up to like, because he's judging her. It's like, okay, yeah, you're poor, you're living down below, but then two, you're a drug addict. Oh no, what have I ever done?
But I still want that box though.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Lita and Sheridan, they are on the ship having a brief discussion about Kosh's death, where she asked him like, well, so where were you when you learned of Kosh's death? And he was talking about the dream that he had about his dad and how when he woke up, he just knew that's what happened, that Kosh was killed. As that was going on, they got the distress signal of an attack and they jump into action. The White Star encounters the shadow vessel and it doesn't attack immediately, but this is where Sheridan instructs Lita to see if she can attack the shadow vessel. So she says she needs a line of sight and they're maneuvering the ship and she tries to scan the shadow vessel, but she has a violent reaction from it. It's like she's in immediate pain. And so she's not able to make the initial contact. But she takes a moment. She strengthens her resolve. She sees that through Sheridan that the vessels are responsible for the death of Kosh. And so she powers up, she goes to level 5,000 with blood popping from her eye vessels. And she is able to freeze the shadow vessel, which the animation looks very weird, but difficult. It's difficult for the thing to move. And this allows the White Star to go in and destroy it. And they're all like happy and yay, we did it. We kind of go back and forth between this confrontation and what's going on with Franklin. So Kaylin wakes up. Franklin is in his post-coitus coma. And she steals Franklin's identity card and she skips out. Back on the White Star, they see that 4 more shadow vessels appear. And that's too many vessels for the White Star. Now they're ready to like die because they're like, oh man, these vessels show up. They see what we can do. They don't want us to be able to live and tell anybody.
It's like in Star Trek, we can't jump for another 10 minutes.
Yep.
Our missiles are powered down for 6 minutes. And we're just running on fumes and a hope and a prayer.
Hey, it takes a lot of power to blow up a ship. So
yeah, it's a Hail Mary time.
Yeah. And so the Minbari appear and like the Minbari ships that they had, they come in and they're like, okay, cool, we're gonna pick up the slack. But since the White Star is out of commission, Sheridan is like, hey, there's only 3 of y'all and it's 4 of them ships. And Minbari is like, it's cool, we'll deal with it. The Minbari do have their own telepaths. And so the telepaths go into action. They freeze the other ships, but because there's so few of them, one of the ships get loose and then they all get loose. And so the shadows are coming to fight back. And so the White Star and the Minbari are all in distress. Just before the shadows start to take out their ships, the Narn heavy cruiser comes in and it joins the fight. And Jakar arrives with a fleet. He says, I brought some friends. He comes with a fleet of a ship from the League Worlds. And because of all of the firepower, it forces the shadow vessels to get out of there. They're getting out of there so they can live to fight another day. Yep.
Didn't they shrivel up a second ship? Because Jakar was shooting at them. And then we took what little firepower we had and shot at them too. And they looked like they crumpled up like a ball of foil.
Yeah, whenever the shadow ships died, they look like dying spiders. It's gross.
Yeah. The Narn kind of remind me of the, I know what they are, but I can't remember. The Bajorans, yeah. It's like they were peaceful, they were religious, but because of their circumstances, they had to learn guerrilla warfare and just...
And they were ridiculously good at it, too.
Yeah.
Major Kira
And,
was a
and I
teeters.
totally, yeah, like that's what they remind me of. Like they're like the way that they go about being very headstrong and ready to attack, but at the same time not really being very skilled at it.
Mm,
They kind of got it feels like they got it out of necessity for being under the regime dictatorship that they were.
yeah.
It's like it hasn't been a priority for their culture
Yeah.
until now.
I guess the whole survival thing makes you take desperate measures a lot more. But we
Yeah.
will see that their circumstances will be changing a little bit uh, later on. So,
And also they might be super strong because of the resources that were on their planet. Remember the
yeah.
Centauri, this is off subject. They were mining them for resources, which probably made their planet pretty heavy. So it may just be the gravitational pull and not their culture that made them strong.
That's a good point.
That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe they do have a. I'm gonna have to look that up, like see if their gravitation is stronger than Earth's. While that happens, we look back and we find Franklin. He wakes up and there's a loud bump, and he darts up and he sees that Kaylin has fallen unconscious, and he doesn't know what's going on. And then he sees that she has a vial of medicine, and of course, his doctor mind just immediately comes on. He's thinking like, oh, she overdosed on this drug that she asked me for. He quickly takes her down to med bay with his doctor, and he's asking her like, hey, how's she doing? And she says, oh, she's doing great. We have her on a medicine drip. He's like, oh my God, medicine? No, that's the thing that got her in this problem in the first place. And of course, what she has to do is be like, look, doctor, I know you're smart, but you don't know shit right now. Here's what you
She
need
keeps
to
putting him in his place.
she keeps putting him in this place because she's like, Caitlin has a terminal neuroparalysis and she passed out from the pain. She didn't even get to use the medicine that she bought with your card. And Franklin is all like dumbfounded. He's like, oh no, I was wrong this entire time. And so he goes and talks to her and he learns about her disease. She's accepting of what's going on with her, and she's just trying to live a good fun life because it's a terminal disease and she only has about 6 to 7 months left, and that is super sad.
Yeah. It's kind of like the life that he wants her to have is one that you have to struggle to work for, where she's living the life where she just gets to enjoy herself.
Yeah.
So him judging her life was lost in his own nuance because he's been killing himself to keep up with his life.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But because she's dying, she's enjoying her life.
Yeah.
Just let all those things go, all those pressures. Like just enjoy the moment. Like, no, you're not here because you're trying to find yourself. You're here because you're here with you're going to enjoy your night with a pretty girl. She's very much in the moment because that's all she's got.
Right. Yeah. After that conversation, Kaylin tells Franklin, like, please don't send me away. Because she likes him, but she also is like, I don't want to be in pain either. So, like, we got a good thing going. Why don't we just kind of, like, ride this out? And so Franklin tells the doctors, like, give her anything that she needs. Remember, the medicine's going to help her sleep. She's probably going to keep drinking, anything to numb the pain that she lives in every day. Yeah. So we quickly switch over to Lita. She's meeting with the new Vorlon ambassador. They're having a conversation. And she explains that she suspects that while she doesn't have a piece of Kosh, someone else might have a piece of Kosh. But she doesn't tell this new Kosh who it might be. Whenever she's with the new ambassador, they do everything to make it feel so uncomfortable. Like, she hates being in the same room with that dude. But she kind of has an advantage on him now because her suspicion is that Sheridan has a piece of Kosh. And she's not telling. Which is interesting. And it's something that we're going to have to wait to see how it plays out because the episode ends with Kaylin singing another song down below. And I believe Franklin is watching her again. And it's kind of interesting, everything that they do in the episode as far as like make it a more vibrant place, make Babylon 5 a more vibrant place, make it a lived in place. It almost seems like they want to follow this story more, but they don't ever pick this up ever again.
And he's got to keep walking after this.
Yeah. And it kind of leaves the audience thinking like, what happened? Well, we know what happened. In 6 months, she's dead. Like,
yeah.
But
that's how they close that up.
Yep. And of course, Franklin is going to have some conflicted feelings because it is a terminal disease he's not able to fix. And his complex is going to be triggered because of that situation. But, we can all, that's headcanon. We can think about that. We can pretend that we know that's happening. So Sunday had to take off because she is joining a tournament. That's all good. Any last thoughts for this episode before we get out of here?
I did enjoy the thought process of like where we've come in mental health compared to, the fact that they're 200 years in the future. But you don't know that in the 90s. Yeah. And the White Star are going to test out what the capabilities are for confronting the shadows. It could kind of be seen as a walkabout. Because you're looking at a different possibility of what you're capable of. So you're finding out more about yourself and your capabilities. When you go on a walkabout, you are finding out how you can survive without what you're capable of, without all of the things that you normally have to survive with.
Yeah.
I am doing gymnastics to try to connect these two things.
Yeah.
They're going out into the unknown to find out what they can do, basically. Yeah. That's my short definition.
And that might be the theme of the episode. There's a lot of unknown. We got to figure out what telepaths can do against the shadows. We got to figure out what Franklin is going to encounter. We got to find out if Garibaldi and Jakar are going to be able to find their common ground,
And if Sheridan is part of Kosh.
Yep. And figure out what's going on with the other Vorlon too.
Yeah.
How all that's going to work. So, yeah. So you do have a lot of questions to address. And some of these are going to be touched on immediately in the next few episodes. And some are going to take probably until the next season. So,
yeah. So that wouldn't make it filler. That would make it vocabulary is gone today.
Kind of, I don't know. It's like a bridging
episode for the next thing. Yeah, it's setting up new information to continue.
Yeah,
it's a transition. Because like the George Lucas, famous for this, doing a 3-part story.
Yes,
in a 3-part story within a 3-part story. So there's always that information part. There's always that action part. There's always that transition. And then you transition into more information. And so this was one of the information. This wasn't a transition. This was an information episode.
Yeah.
But I don't know if on sees to do. Like they'll have ones where it's like, okay, we're going to go into action. Our last 2 episodes, we were putting everything into action, going through time, seeing how all these things play out. It was a very action episode. Now this is a very setting up for the next action episode.
Yeah. And the cool thing is they don't answer all the questions right away. They give you, they take time. They give you some little crumbs here and there, and you have to wait until the big payoff to get it. And there's certain things that they just don't pay off. They just don't pay off until seasons later. So they've been
trying to trinkle it, not like comparing that. I don't know why my brain went this way, but like Stargate, where they would give you exposition, give you information throughout the season. And then at the end of the season, there's a big battle where all of these things are paying off. Even if they've paid off before, now we get to see them pay off again. And it's so much more exciting than the Babylon 5 payoffs, because the Babylon 5 payoffs are still trickling things off as though it's more like real life. Yeah, like everything in your life is not leading to this point, right?
Yeah, you don't wrap everything up in a neat bow. It's like we got a bow on this thing, but this popped the leak over here. We got to pay attention to that now.
Yeah, like Stargate SG-1, the Siege episodes. Those were like everything that has ever happened in Stargate right now was affecting this moment. Everything we learned about fighting the Gaul, fighting the Wraith, all the people we've met, all the technology, everything is going into these 2 episodes.
All right, let's get out of here. Thank y'all for joining us for this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. You can catch us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can find me, Legendary Black Lion, on Instagram, and you can also follow me on Blue Sky.
I am Captain Mel Asylum. You can find me at melsrebellion.com, where you can find a link to my first sci-fi novel, Unrooting the System. You can also find links to my social media.
Awesome. All right. Thank y'all. And we will see you out there. Peace.